Today, I would like to know what your favorite part of distance learning is. I know that there's a lot of drawbacks to distance learning, but I've discovered that there are a few things that are benefits for me. There are actually several things that I'm enjoying about distance learning. I love that I don't have to set an alarm anymore. I love that I have my evenings and weekends back, that I don't have to spend my evenings and weekends prepping and grading because I do have time all day long to prep and grade. So I'm able to spend time with my family during the evenings and weekends. I do really miss working with my students, so I want to say that that is not such a great part of distance learning, but I have discovered a couple of benefits to distance learning, and I'm hoping that you have as well. So let me know what you like about distance learning. Today we're going to learn how to factor what's called a GCF, and hopefully you've heard this term before. GCF stands for greatest common factor. What we've been doing all last week is factoring. So we've been taking an expression and we're basically dividing it back into factors. Now the factors that we're used to seeing are something like 24. The factors of 24 are all of the numbers that go into 24. 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, and 4 times 6. We are going to get back to kind of the basics of that kind of factoring in today's lesson. An example of finding the greatest common factor is if you have the numbers 8 and 12 and you are looking for the largest number, that's greatest, that goes into both of them, that's the factor. Common is that they share, and that would be 4. The largest number that goes into 8 and 12 is 4, so that's the GCF. So in today's lesson, what we're going to be looking for is in our quadratic function, so we're going to have an x squared term, we're going to have an x term, we're going to have a constant, and we are going to find the largest factor or number that goes into all three of them. Our first example, we have 6x squared minus 2x minus 14. So we're thinking about what number goes into 6, 2, and 14. What is the largest number that does that? This one is a little bit easier than some of them are going to be because we have 2 as an option. The only numbers that go into 2 are 1 and 2, and it's never helpful to divide by 1. You're left with what you started with, so we're never going to be factoring out a 1. So 2 is really our only option. So what I'm doing is I'm going to put 2 on the outside of the parentheses because I'm going to divide it out of each term. I made a couple of adjustments. What I'm going to do is show the actual division for each term, and that's what's going to go on the inside of the parentheses. So 6 divided by 2 gives me 3, and that x squared just kind of goes along. 2 divided by 2 gives me 1. If you're one of those who really needs to organize your work by putting a 1 there, please go ahead and do so. If you're one that understands multiplying by 1 doesn't change anything and we can simplify that, I would rather not see the 1. And 14 divided by 2 gives me a 7. Last week we talked about checking our work by doing distributive property, and we can check our work this week by doing distributive property as well. This is just your basic distributive property. 2 times 3 gives us back that 6x squared. 2 times 1 gives us back that negative 2x. And 2 times 7 gives us back that negative 14. So that worked. This is another way of factoring a quadratic equation. Example B, looking at our numbers, we've got 3x squared minus 21x plus 15. What is the largest number that goes into all three of those? And again, we got kind of an easy one because the only numbers that go into 3 are 1 and 3. And again, it's never helpful to divide by 1, so that's never going to be our GCF. Dividing each term by 3, that's what we're going to factor out front of our parentheses this time. So 3x squared divided by 3x squared. Another way to get this simplified answer is that they just cancel each other out, and the only thing left is that x squared. Negative 21 divided by 3 gives me a negative 7x, and a positive 15 divided by 3 gives me a positive 5. This one is a little bit trickier, so now you're going to take a look. We have y equals negative x squared plus 9x minus 17. What can we factor out of all three of those terms? And the answer is -1. Remember, if we don't see a coefficient, it's the same thing as multiplying by 1. What we're going to do after we learn how to do this GCF is we're going to keep factoring with the t-chart, and that t-chart only works if that x squared term is positive and the coefficient is 1. So we want to turn this into something that has a positive 1 as a coefficient for our x squared. So we're going to divide each of our terms by a -1. Positive 9 divided by -1 is -9x, and -17 divided by -1 gives us a positive 17. Again, we can simplify this. That -1 can just be a negative sign. For those of you that are more advanced math students, it's important to practice that. It'll be helpful for simplifying your answers as you get into the higher level math classes. For those of you that really need that -1 there to organize your work, that's fine too. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not quite simplified. All right, last example, we are looking for the greatest common factor of 50x squared plus 5x minus 35. And the number that goes into all three of them is 5. So we're going to divide each term by 5, leaving us with 10x squared plus, again, if you need that one there, go ahead and write it. I'm going to simplify my answer this time. The 5's cancel, and then -35 divided by 5 gives me a -7. As always, let me know what questions you have and what I can help you out with. Take care, guys.